Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and I am here with Tao of the Day. On Tao of the Day, we talk about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written in the 6th century BC, presumably by a guy Lao Tzu, filled with all sorts of enigmatic wisdom and text on how we might live a more reasonable life. When I talk about living a reasonable life, I'm always talking about the idea of living a life in which we're not asking or trying to change things around us. We live day to day and allow the things around us to be what they are, while we also get to be who we are. You know, when we talk about that, when I talk about that, I'm always talking about the idea of surrendering to what's happening without submitting to what's happening, because you have the ability to change your boundaries and change your mind. You have the ability to grow and to mature, and as you live your life, you become more mature. You become more. It's possible as we get older, we reduce our decision making to certain things. Like, when this happens, I do this. When this happens, I do that. But we also have the ability to mature in a way in which we expand the options of what we can do when we face certain things by being present and listening to our intuition, being quiet, being still, not thinking there's only one answer, not thinking there's only one way to do things. When we face a problem as we mature, we should have more information to go off of. But a lot of times what we do is we compartmentalize. And when we compartmentalize, I think we don't get to use our full mind. We don't get to use our entire lives as information to help us make our decisions. When I was younger, I went to all these different areas of Chicago, but they were compartmentalized because I would go to River North, and then I would go to Lincoln Park, and then I would go to 18th Street, and then I would go to Soldier Field, and then I would go to all of these different places in Chicago. But they were compartmentalized because I would it wasn't as if I was going to all of these places at the same time or on the same day, and I would take the train, and the train is a subway between a lot of these neighborhoods. It's not overground, right? So it's not like I can see what's around me. I just kind of go into the subway and I come out somewhere else. And so for a long time, there was all these different parts of the city that were sort of disparate. They were all separate, and I didn't really know how they connected. And then there was a time when I was delivering food and doing things like that for Grubhub or whatever. And when I was doing that, I had to drive from one area to another. And I started to connect all of these compartmentalized thoughts in my head. And when we face a problem, if we face a single problem and we have a single solution for that, that's great. You know, we have this solution, except maybe that problem is being compartmentalized. And so we have a way that we deal with the people that we're in romantic relationships with in a different way than we deal with our friends, because we compartmentalize our romantic relationships from our friends. And we compartmentalize our workplace from our friends, from our romantic. And so we have different conversations. We have different ways of dealing with the situations that come up in each of those scenarios because we've compartmentalized the way we treat people at work, the way we treat people at home, the way we treat people at our third place out at the gym or at the bar, or whatever, or wherever the people are that we are connecting with. We compartmentalize the way that we act in those areas. And so that's not us, right? That's like the information that I gain from my friends and the things that I go through with my friends doesn't spill out into my romantic relationship because the problem solving that I do with my friends is compartmentalized with my friends. And just like I didn't know how Lincoln Park and River North in Chicago connected until I started delivering food and I started saying, oh, this is how they connect. And then I started getting a much better idea of how the city was laid out because I started seeing not only the neighborhoods that I knew, but how they connected. And it's like, oh, wow, this is literally around the corner from this other neighborhood. It's like, I had no idea it was so close and easy to get to because I would take a train and that's how the train would get there. But the train wasn't above ground, so I didn't see how that happened. And maybe in my entire life, I never needed to connect the two. And, that happens. We believe that happens, at least in our different relationships, like how I deal with my friends. Oh, well, but you need a different attitude for your job and you need a different attitude for your relationships. And so we have all of these different compartmentalized relationships. We have all these different ways of dealing with things in our lives, right? We have different situations. And so because of that, we compartmentalize those relationships. We compartmentalize how that all sort of unfolds. And so we don't combine, like those things don't come together. We don't look at our romantic relationship in the same way we look at our friends. And this is I'm just sort of suggesting that maybe if we're compartmentalizing things, just like my experience of, delivering food, when once it's connected, it's like, oh, I've opened myself up to being able to traverse the city in easier ways with new ideas and stuff like that. But if I compartmentalize my romantic relationship from my relationship with my friends, and I deal with my friends, or I listen to my friends, or I do things with my friends that I don't do with my romantic partner, or I don't do with then there may be a block from being able to think to think as broadly as possible because I am compartmentalizing these things, right? Because I compartmentalize this, because I don't think the same between the two scenarios. I don't think about my friends the same way I think about talking to my partner. And so all of a sudden, I only have one way of communicating with my partner, the way I communicate with my partner. But then I have friends that I can deal with things a lot freer with, right? And there might be fear, and it might be compartmentalization, right? It might be about like parents and what I think a relationship is supposed to be, and the preconceived ideas that I put on the different labels that I have for people in my life. I remember I met someone one time, and she was what she called a burner, which was someone who goes to Burning Man. Now, for me, I used to be a raver. Well, someone who goes to a rave could very well go to Burning Man. And I think there was a lot of overlap. I never went to Burning Man. I was never interested in going to Burning Man. And that's always something that I always say, it never crossed my mind. I never got drawn to it. I was never drawn to do it. Just kind of like I've been climbing, but I haven't ever been drawn to climbing outdoors or climbing an actual rock. I mean, maybe that'll happen one day, but so far, nothing. So this friend of mine was a burner, and I didn't know she was a burner. I didn't know she was someone that went to, danced. And I didn't know she was someone that, and I realized that she compartmentalized. She compartmentalized her life, where she had her professional life, she had her friend life, and she had her burner life. And I told her I went to raves. She was like, oh my God, I'm a burner. And all of a sudden we were able to connect on that. And I was just like, wow, I don't see it in you. And she's like, well, I'm a professional. And I remember when I was going to raves, I hung out with this woman, Lisette, and we would go to raves together, and we would dance, and we'd do all this kind of stuff. And she started seeing this guy that went to raves, but then like Monday through Friday, he was, a suit. And it was like this idea of compartmentalizing your life to that degree was really odd to me. It was really odd to compartmentalize that much, where it's like over the weekend, you are a thing that you are like almost to some extent hide everywhere else in your life. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if it's good or bad or right or wrong or anything like that. It's not that. It's just like, it reminds me, and I've talked about this before, it reminds me of that scene from that one X-Men movie where Mystique was lifting weights and stuff, and she was lifting weights, and she wasn't blue, right? She was making herself look like a human. And Magneto comes in and ultimately ends up saying, how much energy are you using to look like a human rather than look like yourself? You're beautiful. Why don't you just let yourself look like yourself? Well, then I don't have to tend with other people's judgments. And Magneto had picked up the weights, and then he dropped them. And as he drops them, she has to catch it. And as she catches it, she turns blue again. She turns to her natural state, because all of her attention had to go towards catching those weights before they broke her neck. Like whether Magneto would have allowed that to happen or not, I can't say. But that was the premise. The premise is you're utilizing this little bit, for you, it's a little bit of energy to compartmentalize these different parts of your life, because you're supposed to be somebody in this arena, right? When you get to your job, when you get home. My sister does this, and I can see it. She there's a switch that gets flipped. But either way, she's exerting energy to be what she is supposed to be in the environment that she finds herself. And she's not allowing herself to really be who she is everywhere, and learn from each of those situations, and let those boundaries blur a little bit. Hey, Sandy, how's it going?
Good morning. I flip that switch. People say to me, "Oh, you're so like when people want to hang out with me from the work environment." I go, "I'm very different outside of here." I give them almost like a warning.
Yeah.
Because in my real world, I'm kind of quiet, subdued. I listen. I watch a lot. I need to re-energize from my week. Right. So I am very different outside of work than I am in work, because I give so much.
Yeah. And there is like I'm not saying that there's a difference, I think, in compartmentalizing and you give a lot in your work and you need to recharge. Mm-hmm. Like, so those that might be a little different. I don't know. I mean, you might be, right, completely different people, right? But, and they, one person doesn't touch another, right? But the fact that you, the fact that you even consider hanging out with someone outside of work in your home or whatever, like that probably not, right? They're probably the same person, but they are, but you recharge in different ways. You probably have things in your life that you put just as much effort into and just as much attention and energy into that you do in your job. But again, that is draining because you may gain energy from quiet.
I do. And it's funny because I get out early on Fridays. I'm not recharged until Sunday morning.
Yeah.
I'm quiet,
and that might be, and that's that might be, something to just look at, just the idea that like this work, whether you love it or, like whatever, still drains you to that extent.
And I'm lucky now that I realize that I need rest and quiet because I would keep I was always a person in motion.
Yeah.
I never slowed down.
Body in motion stays in motion.
Correct. Right?
Yeah.
And now that I'm in my 60s and I need to recharge and I'm just to me, that's a skill.
It is. It is absolutely a skill because, with your age, so you lived through certain cultural things that, and you lived through certain feminist models,
absolutely.
that really so many of the feminine models that you were privy to as a young woman were be like a man models, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like put on your shoulder pads and your pantsuit and like go power through everything, right? And that was an early model that you got to see as a teenager.
So it is true. Exactly.
Yeah. And being so, like close to New York and stuff like that, like it's impossible for that to have not affected how you, and even, you can even hear that sort of feminist model in, your sort of don't scroll and don't, like this whole, of the like arguments that you have are arguments that would be had from that model, And then, so that's a really interesting thing. And so, so there is some compartmentalization because when you can see that when you can observe that, because that is what you are at work. And when you come home, you may just have a softer way about you.
Yes, I absolutely do.
And that softness may benefit your work, but it has to be balanced because you do have to like put your foot down, but there is like you get more you catch more bees with honey than vinegar, right? That kind of a thing. And it's like and so it's important to understand that and maybe because of what you're saying, maybe there's this deep compartmentalization where the mind of you at work and the mind of you at home haven't really shared a lot of information because there might be a rule somewhere deep in you that, well, softness doesn't have any place at work. And so I have to be hard. And so that's exhausting because you're spending extra energy trying to keep out that softness, right? And like that story from, X-Men, whatever. Like when she's lifting and there's this a little bit of energy that she's exerting. And then when it comes time to focus completely, she can do it, but she has to let go of that. Right. She has to let go of that little bit that's making her look like she's a human instead of the blue skin that she has. Right. So all of that, and like and when those two can combine, you become more powerful, because now you don't only have hard. You have hard and soft, and that, that may be coming in when you're celebrating someone's birthday who lost their parents and stuff, right? There's that softness that's starting to come in, but you know when to shut it off.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing. It's like, maybe it doesn't have to be shut off. It just has to be, you can't let it take over.
Right.
Right? It's like, but it can always play a role. Because the hard mind of yours, like the right side, like your structural mind, can see the substance behind it, but there's that wall between the two of just like, there's no place at work for this,
So funny of the other day was, I said, I have a gaggle of 14-year-old boys this summer in the gym, and I said, which one do you want? Do you want to have a great summer with me or not?
Right.
I go, it's one or the other. You have to play by my rules.
Yeah.
Or it's not going to be a good summer. And they smiled at me. And, when they pop into my office to say hello, I know I'm doing a great job.
Yeah.
So.
And it takes a lot, like kids want they want those boundaries, but they also, they also want to be able to connect.
Right. And they really do. They really do.
Yeah. And that's your softness, because like if you were just someone that it was just the rules, then they wouldn't be reaching out. Right.
I've taken on 60 14-year-olds this year, and oh my God, they're running me ragged. And and I love them all, but some days I'm like, oh.
You got a number?
I'm gonna go with number 8. Crazy 8.
Crazy 8. Be like water. Water is humble, always traveling to the lowest place, nourishing without taxing everything along the way. In so doing, it is like Tao. The master aims to resemble water. In thinking, she is simple. In conflict, she is yielding. In governing, she doesn't need to control. In work, she does the obvious thing. In family life, she is continually present. When one can be content with being and not require comparison or praise, it is said they invest of their life by making of it a donation. When I hear that, and I hear that you had 60, 70, 14-year-old kids in your, that's the, you're donating. This is a donation to life. Like you are giving these kids these experiences and these relationships, and you're talking with them, and you're communicating with them, and you're helping them mature in a very important time in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is a privilege. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. You have a wonderful day. Yep.
You too.
We'll be in touch, dear.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I got Susan and then Melissa. Susan, how are you, dear?
Great.
I'm so glad. How's your back?
Well, my back is my back.
It sure is.
But I made it down the pier.
Nice.
We came back. We were sitting at one of the restaurants that face the pier and getting something to drink afterwards. And all of a sudden, we were talking about my mom because it was her birthday. And they said, what year was she born? I said, 1926. It was her 100th birthday anniversary that I did this.
Wow.
I know.
And
I just cried.
You didn't even know it.
I had no idea. When we figured that out, when we said it at the table, I just cried. I just said, thank you. So sweet. So then I got sick for 3 weeks. I had bronchitis. They couldn't get rid of it. And so I was bedridden for pretty much for 3 weeks. And I came out of it. He put me on steroids, which popped me up. And I'm back.
Yeah. There's always there's that idea of like stillness and integration, right? That idea of like you do an act, and then you have to be quiet, and then and then you have to you have to rest.
Yes.
You have to let that integrate, let that experience integrate. And we can talk about the bronchitis, and we can talk about we can talk about all of those things. Sure. Absolutely. All of that can be distracting, all of that stuff. And we can definitely go down that road. But we can also look at what is, on the grand scheme, what happened. Right? You worked really hard to get to a certain thing. You got to that thing, and then we're given a little gift.
Oh, boy, did I.
Right? Of your mom's birthday. I mean, you knew it was your mom's birthday, I think.
Right.
But you didn't recognize that it was her 100th birthday.
I had no idea.
You completed this walk down the pier that you were determined to do. And you did it with the strength of, your family. Right?
Absolutely. My family was there.
Yeah, absolutely. And your mother was there.
Yes, she was.
And then when you're all sitting down to eat, and then this is something that I think American culture doesn't really get as much, where it's like we eat and we're here with our ancestors. We're here with our family. This is family. It's not just about eating, but it's about staying at that table, connected, and that's where, go on.
It was a beautiful moment.
Yeah. And after that comes stillness. Because all of that action, all of that connection, all of that work, and maybe that doesn't happen for everybody, but for you, this is what had happened. In 3 weeks, you were in bed. I always think about the universe as like, when we get to a point in our lives when we are really moving mountains, really kind of altering the universe by being ourselves, we have to slow down because not everybody else is doing that. And the world isn't necessarily ready for us. And so things happen. Like, I was bedridden for a month. You were bedridden for 3 weeks, right? Like these things happen because, what you need in your life doesn't yet exist. Like we can't inspire you because because everybody else in the world isn't necessarily here. And then the universe has to find the people and find the situations and recover all of this stuff so that you can continue to see yourself. But as you see yourself, as you define yourself, and I don't know how hard it was for you, like mentally or emotionally, to be bedridden for 3 weeks.
It was hard.
Yeah. But that is your experience. Your experience is with yourself. And the people and that supported you through that and all of it?
Well, I'd had to do a lot of thinking because there wasn't much else to do. I don't like watching television. I do mind games on the internet, but my mind was pretty fuzzy. So I just rested. And I tell you, I thought about things in my life, and I would shut down, and I'll come back, and I figured it out. I just figured it out. It was not a problem. It was something that happened, and that happened so many times. I would just stop when I had one of these thoughts, and it was just like a light bulb came on.
Yeah. And all of that, when we can receive that, we talk about that a lot in Tao, and we talk about that when we work together and all of these sorts of things, the idea that like it's time to receive, and this is what you receive. And when you are open, and this work that we do, when we do it, it does force us to reevaluate things, one way or another.
Yeah.
And yeah, here you are.
Yeah, I was already in the process of doing that, but this just cemented it. It just cemented it. I was so confident. And when I got better, it took me a few days to come back, but I'm in physical therapy. I'm in water aerobics. I'm volunteering at the food bank. I have doctor's appointments probably weekly between spine and everything else.
Yeah.
But I'm up. And I'm ready, and I do it, and I'm happy.
See, that's the wonderful thing. It's like when we're ready, like it's not as if life becomes the gift, right? It's the being.
Exactly.
And and I don't know how much work it was to sign up for water aerobics and all that kind of stuff, but when we're ready, those things just sort of happen. And it's like,
and I actually look forward to them.
Yeah. And it's like, and then we do these things and we have these fun experiences and we meet new people and we have new relationships and all of these new great things start to, but it takes that work that we've done, right? It takes that work of knowing who we are. It takes that work of, and it's not like it's flipping a switch. Like it takes time to integrate.
Well, it's integrating. That's what I'm telling you.
That's right. Do we have a number?
You pick one for me, please.
Gotcha. Number 80.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is a good one. What's important? I don't know if you're following along, but I think this is the only one that I have two different versions of. And so the one that I'm going to read is going to be different than the one in the book. But it's not. It's all the same message. So if anything pops out, you let me know. Any state wishing to align with Tao remains small. Too many people bring about too many options and opinions. In a small state, its inhabitants are skilled and wise. However, there's never a need to put their skills on display. They will be happy to humbly use their skills and work together. They never dwell on anything too long. The next thing to do is always making itself known. They love their surroundings, so they have no desire to travel. Although they have a few trucks and boats, none are inspired to use them. They love their lives and their simple food. They make their own clothes, spend time in their gardens while speaking to neighbors. They take the greatest pleasure in being with family.
Oh, boy.
Even though there's a bus to the city that travels through every week, everyone here will be content without ever having made the trip.
I love it.
There's always something you can want. There's always something you can desire. There's always something on the horizon. But where are you? And I think that's what this is saying. Where are you? It's like, You don't have to impress people with your clothes. You can make your own clothes. What else are you doing? You know? What else is there? Like, you need clothes, you need food, you need shelter. Spend your time doing that. Spending time with family, your neighbors, the people that you care about. Don't dwell on anything too long. The next thing to do is always making itself known. I love that.
I do too.
You know?
I do too.
Yeah, you can sit there and you can dwell and dwell and dwell. But it's like, if you're quiet, you know, and you were forced to be quiet for 3 weeks, and I understand that wasn't easy, but even in the midst of that, you didn't have to dwell on anything too long. If something came up, then you went back to sleep, you sat with it, and it solved itself. Like, it came up. Your brain worked on it without your actively having to instruct your brain to do that.
Yep. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And I'm just in a happy state. I'm happy to not have bronchitis.
Right. And you know, and it says here, any state wishing to align with Tao remains small. And the thing is that's humility. We don't make ourselves big. We don't make ourselves important. We don't try and find more options or opinions. We don't try and find more answers. Because in a small state, when we remain humble, we're skilled and wise, and we use our skills to benefit ourselves and others. In this quiet way, we don't try and put ourselves at the front of the line. We don't try and make ourselves so important that everybody's clamoring for us. And it always turns out that everyone's clamoring for us anyway. Everyone's chomping at the bit to hang out with Susan.
I have a story to tell you. I went to my granddaughter's graduation in the middle of my illness. I got up out of bed. I was not walking well. I wore a mask, but I was determined to go. I did. It's at a huge high school, excuse me, in LA. I had to go to the stadium, and we had handicap parking, but when we got there, there's like 40 steps going down to the ground level. And they're only like not even a foot wide. I looked at my son, who was holding me, holding my hand. I said, I will never do that. I'm going to just roll down and end up at the bottom. And so I stood there for quite a while, and all the handicapped seats were taken, and I had I had to stand.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and I held on to the railing, and I got it, but all of a sudden, 3 guys came up to me with my son and said, "We'll help you get down. There's a seat right there." And they literally got on both sides of me and in front of me in case I fell, and took me down 3 steps and put me on the seat. And I got to watch my granddaughter's graduation.
You know, there are lessons in every part of life, and sometimes we need a voice. Sometimes we need the experience of not being helped so that we can be forced to learn the lesson of asking for help.
Oh, that's always been my hardest point.
Sometimes.
I could never ask for help.
Yeah. And then sometimes we need faith in people and faith in the idea that we're being held. And so we need the experience of being offered help without asking it. And sometimes we need the lesson of being able to receive help. And so we get help without necessarily thinking that we want it. You know, there's all sorts of different ways that we're going to experience life. There's all sorts of different ways that we're going to have these experiences, and they're going to, but they come And, this is why we talk about receiving so much, because we get to a place where we need to learn how to receive.
Took me 76 years.
And you might not be done.
Absolutely.
There's still lessons. There's always going to be more. And that's the thing. What a wonderful experience that was.
It was mind blowing to me, but it just happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I want to say, Melissa, I'm sorry I took so long. I know you're waiting. I want to say hi to Marianne and Jackie. And with that, I'll let you go.
All right. I love you, dear. We'll talk again soon.
I love you, too.
And we're going to bring up Melissa. And each one of those experiences that we can have to learn is ours. Hey, Melissa, how's it going?
It's going well, Martin. John, how are you?
Last day.
Actually, I have professional.
Yesterday was
the last day with the kiddos. 24 kids showed up, Martin, John. There was only one student, the one that gave me the hard time. And guess what? We watched The Great and Powerful Wizard of Oz, Martin.
Since they're not there.
Take that, mister.
Touche.
But you know what? It's funny, the analogy that you shared, because I think that I do that a lot. And that's one of the things that I love about being with my students, is that I am my silly self, that I don't feel judged and I don't have a problem being Melissa. Mm-hmm. I let the true Melissa shine through with the kiddos because I don't feel that they're judging me. And I think that's why I got triggered by that one kiddo, because he was like, "Oh, that's inappropriate." Well, you're judging me, dude. And
did you watch to see what he might have thought was inappropriate?
I think it was, yeah. I absolutely did. And there was this part at the beginning where this, the wonderful wizard, before he went off to Oz, was kissing his girlfriend. And I mean, they weren't like making out hot and heavy or anything like that. It was like a kiss. And okay. That's the only thing that I could find, because it was like at that part, like I said, I remembered where I stopped it. And that's the only thing that I could think of that he was judging, was that the wizard kissed his girlfriend before he left on his adventure. But yeah, no, I mean, and I'm packing up my room, and there was a couple of points where I stopped and I'm like, I've never seen this. This is such a good show. I wish I could sit down and enjoy it. So I will maybe, later, like this weekend, I don't know, before I go off to the DR, but, no, I really like that Mystique example that you shared, because I think I do waste energy sometimes, and especially like around like people that I feel are judging me. And I'll give you an example. After school yesterday, there was a get together, and so I go out to this Mexican place, and although I do have to say the way that I was received kind of helped me not be as uptight as I am sometimes around my colleagues, because I do feel like I'm being judged. My boss said to me that they just got, the numbers. It's always about measurement. They just got some report back, and that 60% of the fourth graders were proficient in ELA. And so I got like a high five, and I was like, okay, that made me feel a little bit, recognized for my hard work with the kiddos. And I was like,
what's ELA?
English language arts. That's what I taught this year. Okay. I worked. I didn't do math or anything else. I just focused on, reading, writing, and grammar is basically ELA. Okay. So, yeah, it made me feel a little bit seen as far as my efforts were concerned. And not that I'm the only fourth grade ELA teacher, but I'm the only teacher that taught just ELA. So, well, no, that's not true. The other teacher did do ELA as well. But it did make me feel a little bit seen. And so, I didn't stay long, but, because I have 2 dogs that I had to get home to and let out, but I at least went, and I was social. There's, one teacher that I feel particularly able to be myself with. So I kind of was talking to her, and then I went on my merry way, and now I have to go back today to a professional development. And there are a few things that I didn't finish in my room, but I told my boss I would take care of it today. I have to be there
Good.
anyway. So,
Yeah, everything's lining up. Everything.
Well, there is one little hitch in the get along, and I'm hoping my friend's going to help me figure it out today. I've tried I think 5 times now to get my e-ticket, and every time I put in my confirmation number and my last name and everything, it's like no information found, and I'm like, oh man.
You're for your plane.
Yes.
For your flight.
Yes.
Yes. But okay. Do you, I don't know. We're not. That's a longer conversation. Talk about emails and other things like that, and it's just so. I mean, you have a confirmation number. Okay. Let's pick a number. Let's pick a confirmation number.
We're gonna go with 24. Since I had 24 kiddos yesterday, we're gonna go with 24.
24. Do what is to be done. Standing on tiptoes robs you of firm footing. Rushing ahead robs you of knowing where you are. Looking at yourself robs you of seeing. Boasting of yourself robs you of your brilliance. Overpowering others robs you of your power. Clinging to your work robs you of longevity. If you want to align with Tao, just do what is to be done and then stop.
Very appropriate.
I think so. Especially, you went to the dinner and then you went home. You did what you showed up, you chatted a bit, you had some guacamole, and you went home.
Oh, I did have some guacamole. It was so good. Oh my goodness. I ordered these taquitos and I was so afraid when I got on the scale this morning, Martin John, but it actually went down. I was like, woohoo! I got these taquitos and they had this guacamole and this crema on top. Oh my goodness. It was so good. Oh yeah. Yum. I love a good guacamole, my friend.
Yeah, but so aligning with, that's the thing with your kids, with the kids, you can be yourself, but you're with the adults, with the other teachers, with your principal.
And with the parents.
And with the parents, you have to play a role.
Yes.
And that's not true. You're not that person. You don't get
to be that person.
Right. And you don't get to utilize all the skills that Melissa has at her disposal.
Right, because I'm using this energy trying to fit into this mold that I think they want me to fit into. That's right.
And that's what this standing on tiptoes robs you of firm footing. Rushing ahead robs you of knowing where you are. Looking at yourself from their perspective robs you of seeing. You can't see how to solve these problems. You can see from one perspective, but you can't see it from your entire life. All of the experiences that you have in your life are being compartmentalized into this identity that you think you're supposed to be, rather than being able to touch every, when you're in a meeting and you can't think of a response or you get flustered and all of those things. And then when you get out and you get to be yourself in your car while you're going home, and then all of the things start flooding in on how you could have responded, all of that is because I would think it's because you're utilizing this energy to be something, and you can't allow yourself to just flow as Melissa, because there's this role that you have to play as a teacher, as you're expected to be. And I think this year has been really good for you because you've stood up for yourself time and time again, which is not something that you really, you were so much, I don't want to utilize this, but in terms of measuring, you were weaker last year than you were this year. And this year you stood up and you had to face a lot of scrutiny. You've had to face, and you sat through a lot of that, and you allowed people to have their opinions without altering yours.
But the biggest thing was, Martin, is I did it with dignity, and I did it with grace, and I did it with calmness, and I wasn't living in that fear that was so crippling before,
Right. And even if you'd go home and cry, even if you'd go home, you know that was energy that needed to move anyway. So you allow that energy to move, and then you came back stronger. Because you are more in touch with yourself. Now, as you continue to grow and expand, and like you made this choice to be with the younger kids next year and all of these sorts of things, those may very well help you be stronger next year and be able to show up in these meetings and show up in these work events more Melissa next year than you were even this year.
Well, how about I start it today, Martin John? How about I go to this meeting?
Well, that's a good idea, but we'll see what you're capable of, right? Like, this is the thing. It takes you can't just bypass this, because if you were to, you might shoot yourself in the foot, right? Like, boasting of yourself robs you of your brilliance. Like, overpowering others robs you of your power. Clinging to your work robs you of longevity. Like, you take this one step at a time. Yes, you start today as best you can, to the best of your ability. You get to be yourself, And now that you don't have the kids, because the kids are your route to getting in trouble. Because your kids are the reason that you're being yourself. Right? But they're gone. Now you either show up as yourself, and then you don't have anybody, you don't have an intermediary, right? The kids were the intermediary to you. Yeah. So if you act a certain way in class, and then your principal's like, why did you act that way? And you're like, but I'm being myself, which I'll never be in front of you.
Right.
So you don't even know who I am.
She has no clue.
You know what I mean? And so now, today, you can give her a glimpse of what you are and who you are, without the intermediary of the children. And hopefully the high five and everything that you did yesterday, that was part of that. That's who you are. But as soon as you walk into that restaurant, you are teacher Melissa, right? Miss B. This is the identity that you're holding, because these are your coworkers.
Well, what's funny is she didn't address me as Miss B. She didn't say my first name, but she's like, Brent. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm not Miss B here. Okay.
and that's, that's something that you recognize, and so much so that you noticed it. Mm-hmm. Once you notice it, you notice, this is like, what is my role then? Who am I? What do I do? And how do I act? Where between who I am when I am alone versus who I am when I am here am I? And this is the work that we do now. We start to observe, like, oh, look at how I'm acting. Oh, look, there's this part of me that's not me, or this part of me that I don't like that I do, and we adjust, and we grow, and we take those steps, and we move in that direction. And then no longer stand on tiptoes. We no longer rush ahead, and we no longer look at ourselves. We allow ourselves to just receive.
Well, thank you, as always, my friend. You always provide me with wise words, and I love the guidance that you share with me. And Sandy, I'm so proud of Susan, I'm so proud of you for walking the pier. I was clapping for her. I don't know if she saw it, but I'm so proud of her for walking the pier. And you can talk as much as you want. I am fine. I don't have to be there till 8:30, so I'm going to get my bag and I'm going to head out the door. It's going to take me about 10 minutes to get there, so I will be fine. And it's today and tomorrow, and then I'm done, and I'm getting ready to go on my missions trip. I'm going to sing my song to you, not today, Martin John, another day. We'll sing
another day,
not today, because I only have 1 minute, and I don't know if I can do it in a minute, but I will sing to you, Martin John, at
I'm
another
looking forward to it.
time. I love you. Have an amazing day, my friends.
You as well, dear. Thank you. And I bring up JK. Man, everybody's got their successes. Everybody's connected. Love you guys. JK, how are you doing?
I am well. How are you?
I'm well. Life is easy.
Life is easy. It's interesting listening to the idea of the compartmentalizing, because for me it was really internal. Always because I judged myself so harshly. So I realized early on, the more I tried to I remember this one time, it was funny. Well, it wasn't at the time, but I decided I was going to wear dresses to work because I wanted to look more professional. And because my team we were having a hard time finding that bond. And anyway, I wore the dresses, and my boss and I've always made friends with the people I worked with. And so I had told him I was at the gym, and he had said, "Oh," and I said, "My arm's so sore." He goes, "Here, I'll pull it for you." And he pulled it, and I fell over to the others. He just let go. And it wasn't funny at the time. It was, but it wasn't. But it was that whole idea of every time I tried to dress up or be something else, it was like the universe always gave me something like that. So I kind of let a little of that go. I'm sure I do it in places in my life, but it was always the internal compartmentalizing where I would often just really judge myself so harshly, just preemptively, and figure out that story because I didn't know. And that's kind of the way I did that. And I don't know. I'm a little nervous saying that out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, the lessons we get are ours, they're the things that we need so that we can observe ourselves, when this happens, so often, a lot of times, a lot of people would say something to the effect of, it's just my luck that this were to happen, right? Because I did this or whatever. But to recognize recognize we're not a victim, because it's just our luck becomes that victim mentality, we're the victim of, falling over or getting dirty or doing, because, I don't have I don't wear white shirts because all my light shirts stained immediately, right? For whatever reason. And so, it's as soon as I put on something light, it's this is the only time. This is the only time I'm going to be able to wear, because the next time it's going to be stained. And that's sort of like segment intending, we intend, and we don't actually intend for this to stain, but we have made this, we have made this, we've had enough experiences to then just chalk it up to, oh, this is going to happen now. And even if I don't think about it, it's running in the background. It's kind of like that mystique thing where it's I'm spending a little bit of energy just, trying to stain my clothes in some manner.
Yeah. And the self-fulfilling prophecy. And I did a lot of that just through, because it was, as a kid, I would not understand, and it felt safe to do that behavior. And it was in some regard, so that I can preemptively be prepared for what was coming. But then I carried that really, really, too far, and to a point where until I didn't like it. And it was that judgment and that criticism, instead of allowing the criticism that existed in my household, the abuse from that regard, to process, I would just judge myself so harshly that I didn't even hear it anymore, because nobody else could say anything worse than I was thinking of myself. And that extrapolation was, it was hard. But on the outside, I think that was where the dualism on the outside, I was me because it kind of just shined through. Like I am goofy and the way I am. Like, I mean, I don't know. That kind of filter didn't exist. It was really inside that it was really bad though. And I'm only, it's only recently I saw how bad it was because it was subtle. But yeah, if you want to pick a number, I'd love that. Thank you.
54. Observing virtue. Okay, so this says, tend to Tao in your life and it will never be uprooted. Hold fast to Tao and it will never slip away. Filled with Tao, respect the children and they will respect the children. This simple virtue will continue for every generation. This can only start with an individual. When her virtue can be realized, she will cultivate it in her family and it will become great. They will cultivate this virtue in their community and it will continue to grow. Naturally spreading across the nation and becoming abundant. Because it is abundant, it will touch every part of the universe. How do I know this is the way? By quietly observing myself.
Yeah, quietly observing myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way. And being able to, and it's like you said to Melissa, it has to go in the order that it has to go in. We don't really have control over that. We can try to jump ahead. And I tried. But it doesn't work out so well when you do that. Well, for me, it didn't. You have to allow the time to just do what it does over whatever your repeated behaviors, those small improvements, those little choices that you make. I don't like that I'm doing this. And then you see where it kind of ends up. But I think I didn't want to believe that, inside. I didn't want to believe that I was that person, but I did. And it was just such this like dualism that lived within me. I was constantly tugging, but I wouldn't observe that and process it. It was my way of kind of shielding myself from those emotions that that's how it got shoved down.
This line, respect the children and they will respect the children. Like that's the virtue that we're talking about. Like that's the virtue that, once that virtue is realized. And this is the thing that I think I try and get people to recognize. And because if we look at Sandy, when you respect, or when we look at anybody, Sandy, Susan, Melissa, when we talk to anybody, through this, it's like the idea is observe how you feel about this thing. Do you like that you're doing this? Or do you not like that you're doing this? And that's the child of this experience. That's that, oh, yeah, I don't like that I'm doing this. And then I can actually observe myself. And because I'm observing myself and I'm making changes, I'm not actually making changes, because you can argue that none of these people actually made changes in their life. Changes were made because they had awareness. When we look at Susan's experience of being in bed for 3 weeks and then things kind of solving themselves, and she's, opening herself to these new changes and new ideas and new thoughts. That's because she's aware that the thoughts are coming in the first place. When you can be aware that that's coming in and you respect that coming in, you say, oh, I don't like that, I'm judging this person. Great. That is respect for the fact that you're having judgment. So if you have judgment, respect that. Respect the fact that you have judgment. Now, if you don't like that that's happening, great, but you have to have respect. You have to recognize that it's happening. If you shut off your awareness to that which you are experiencing, you're not respecting the children. You're not respecting what came from your decisions, what came from your experiences in your life. And when we look at that line, like respect the children, they will respect, this is the virtue that will continue to grow. And when you cultivate that in your family, meaning when you cultivate that in the people around you, meaning that when you do it, you will inspire those around you to do the same. Cultivate it in your family and it will become great. And then those people that are around you are around people that are not around you, and they will cultivate it in those people. And that's how it will continue to grow, naturally spreading across the nation and becoming abundant. Then all of a sudden, people start respecting the children. You know, we look at pollution in the world, and these are companies that are not respecting the children. There are companies and there are people that don't respect the children that their actions are producing. And so that pollution expands instead of this virtue. You know, the pollution of lying, the pollution of not being aware, the pollution of addiction, the pollution of the water, the pollution of the air. All of this happens because there's this simple virtue of, hey, take stock of what happens to your decisions. And when you take stock of that, that means quietly observing yourself. And what a wonderful way to end this, right? How do I know this is the way? By quietly observing myself. How am I quietly observing myself? By respecting the children. Because when I take that respect, the next step is to act on that respect, on that observation, on that awareness that I've just experienced.
Yeah. And I think the part that I didn't do was the quietly. It was always with a lot of judgment. Like, I was aware. I knew I didn't like that I was doing it, but it became this, like, it's like almost a pleasure pain thing, you know, where both are existing. Because for whatever reason, you know, and that was somewhat, you know, the addiction of it. It was just this idea of I couldn't stop. And with the judging of myself so harshly. And it became a pattern.
You know, I would always push back on the idea, like, awareness means something very specific, and you can say you were aware of it. But, you know, when people know their trauma but aren't aware of their trauma, they continue to act from their trauma body. So although you knew, especially as I would define awareness, you weren't aware of anything. You know, like you weren't aware of how damaging it was. You weren't aware of how it was conducting, you know, how it was forcing you to make decisions outside of what you knew was best, because you weren't taking into stock. Like you may have known you didn't like that you were doing it, and that is, you know, that's, I mean, I don't know how long ago this was, but, you know, if it was 2 minutes ago, you don't know who you were 2 minutes ago. So to judge who you were then with your mind now, is also a kind of, that's a leap. And so we have to, you know, like, you know, and this is, you know, I talk to clients a lot about this idea, like, there's a difference between knowing your trauma and being aware of it and all of its tentacles, right? Because, like, knowing it, sometimes you say yes, you know it almost in hindsight. It's kind of like hindsight's 20/20. It's like, yeah, you know now that it's all said and done, but
it's always,
like,
yeah,
you know, can you see, because I know as an addict, if I think today about drinking alcohol, I know. And if I think about it in a very specific way, I know that little thought can get its hook in in such a way that in 3 years I'll drink. That is the insidiousness of, and that's the deep awareness that we have to be able to have. And this is where it comes to respect the children, and they will respect the children. And that's really just about awareness. You're aware of the results of your actions. Like, you're aware that if you don't go shopping today, there's not going to be any food in the fridge. But can you be aware of how you're utilizing your energy that will make it impossible for you to go shopping today, and tomorrow there not be food in the fridge? And are we kind of, do we have that kind of breadth of awareness, of like deep awareness that will allow ourselves the space to grow? And I just want to say, Sandy, thank you for sending me that message. It's beautiful. JK, go ahead.
No, I thank you, because it's true. I mean, but that's the process. It was all I could do
Right.
at the time, and it's always hindsight, and it's always where you know, but you don't. I mean, we're always living in that space,
Right.
and really being unaware in terms of being able to just allow whatever you're drawn to guide you, or your whatever's inside of us. That was not something I could do, and being aware of, not really knowing exactly that I do that now, but I feel like I do. But I felt like I was aware, all those other times too. So it just goes back to, you just do this over and over and over again, and continue to, like you said, don't put one on a different pedestal than the other. Respect the children, respect all of it individually, and allow it all to be whatever that is. So yeah, no, it's true. This is always such a good verse. But the respecting the children, from respecting my own children to respecting myself. But it all has to unfold in these layers, because you can't get to the middle until you go through from the top, And so I can even say that I live with awareness now, but knowing that I really still don't know. The only thing I really do know is that I don't know. That's what I kind of come to most of the time. It's interesting to come to that conclusion. It's just like, you really don't know, and just allowing that not knowing to be able to sit with it. And I had to do it a lot till I didn't, but I still struggle with it at times. So it's just this continuing process that, I don't know, like with Susan, you get to one pier and then there's another, and you got to just keep going, and you celebrate those moments though. I'm grateful for the awareness that I had in those moments, because it got me to be here.
Yeah. And that's it's interesting that this ends with by quietly observing myself, because that by quietly observing myself is the whole point, right? Like, that is, there's no entryway into this cycle but observing yourself. So while you observe yourself, you can see the children that you are birthing in your life. You can see the results of your actions. And those results will change as you continue to observe yourself. But if you never observe yourself, it's not going to change. So even if you go to therapy and you get all these like solutions, you get all these action things to do, without observing yourself, none of that's going to change. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, observing yourself is the thing that is going to inspire you to take the action to do the things that you are going to point at, that you say like segment intending helps me. Like, well, you got to observe yourself before you're ready to segment intend, because you have to see the segments in your life first. Mm-hmm. And so at the observing yourself point, like that's the beginning of that respecting the children. So there's this cycle that as you observe yourself, you see the children your actions create, and that will allow those children, like the next you, the next iteration of who you are, to respect the actions that they take. And then that will allow them to mature to the next iteration of who you are, which will allow, like that's this cycle of respect the children and they will respect the children. And that's always about quietly observing yourself. That's where it starts. And ultimately that's where the maturity kind of launches, so that you can become the next iteration of yourself. Again, no end, right? But there's no way to get in without that, right? You can add stuff. You can start throwing stuff at the wall and trying things, like meditation or mindfulness and all of this. But all of those things ultimately point to observing yourself. But you don't need that to observe yourself. You don't need to meditate in order to observe yourself. It's just a shortcut to observing yourself, or it's trying to be.
A focused approach. But yeah, it is. Yeah. It's interesting. The ending. It is. I don't know. I love this book, but it's just the beginning and
it's amazing.
Yeah, the end. the fact that it's how the verse ends, and it's also the beginning.
Right?
It's really cool. And I didn't recognize that in previous times that I've read this verse. So I like that idea.
And that's really like tend to Tao in your life. How do you do that? Quietly observing yourself.
Yeah.
And if you quietly observe yourself, this will never be uprooted, because you are at the core of that. You are the root of that. Hold fast to Tao and it will never slip away. Meaning, like, you will always be who you are. You won't go into, a Mexican restaurant being the role that you're expected to be, because there is no reason for you to be that. You aren't going to be someone else. You're always going to be yourself, because because you're constantly observing, and you respect the children. It's like, oh, look, I'm playing a role here. You respect the children. Oh, that's good. But I don't like that I do that. So by taking action, by looking at it, by observing it, you create another child. You create another iteration of who you are. You grow into that and continue to mature.
That's a good verse.
It sure is. Absolutely. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it.
Of course. See you later. Love you. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too.
Okay, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining me. So this is really just like, I love this, because one of the things I love is doing my work. And this is my work. This is a free sort of introduction to what I do. If you guys are interested in going deeper with me, please check out the links in my profile. You can set up a free call with me and we can chat about what that looks like. And if, like I said, this is the time and the place where you can engage with me and engage with these ideas and engage with Tao. Tao isn't something that I really bring too much into my one-on-one work, but I do Tao readings if you wanted to do this privately. Or you can just come up and chat with me, as Susan and Sandy, Melissa and JK did today. And you get, your own little personal insights. And those things can take you pretty far. Like to get those little insights that we share, can, just roll around in your head for a while, and you can kind of make shifts in your life. You can start observing yourself and allowing those children to continue to mature in your life, allowing those decisions that you make, those actions that you take to continue to be more mature and more reasonable every day. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you are interested in connecting or supporting me and the show, check out the links in my profile. You can support me and the show through Venmo or buy me a coffee. You can also set up a one-on-one call with me, do other things like that. So check out those links if you want. You can write me here on Noom Vibe, and I would be happy to respond and connect with you in a back channel. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.